On the news, more trouble for the APC as aggrieved members challenge the dissolution of National Working Committee. All Nigerian states now affected as Cross River confirms index COVID-19 case. And Malawi opposition wins presidential election rerun. Many thanks for joining us on News Now on TV360 Nigeria. It seems the crisis rocking the All Progressives Congress APC is far from over, as some members of the party have threatened to go to court to challenge the dissolution of the National Working Committee. On Thursday, the National Executive Council of the APC agreed to dissolve the National Working Committee as part of measures to address the leadership crisis rocking the body. Reacting in a statement, 18 members of the dissolved National Working Committee described the NEC meeting held on Thursday as illegal. The aggrieved members, including Hilad Etta and Waziri Bulama, argued that Victor Gadom has no right to call a National Executive Council meeting since he was no longer a member of the party. Meanwhile, Chairman of the Progressives Governors Forum, Atiku Bagudu, says the National Executive Committee of the APC did no wrong by dissolving the National Working Committee and putting a caretaker committee in place. Bagudu, who is a member of the 13-man caretaker committee, spoke after the group paid a visit to President Buhari on Friday. Away from politics now, the federal government says it's cutting down the cost of governance by stopping non-critical and administrative capital spending, which includes the purchase of non-essential official vehicles. Special advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari, Femi Adesina, announced this in a document entitled What You Need to Know About the Nigeria Economic Sustainability Plan. In the document, Adesina said the NESP is seeking to expand the social investment programs. He also adds that the plan offers opportunities for state government to collaborate with the federal government on affordable mass housing, agriculture, off-grid power, and projects. The Nigerian government has been directed to immediately pay the arrears of salaries and other entitlements owed to 244 soldiers who were dismissed from the Nigerian Army in 2016. The directive follows a ruling of the ECOWAS court in Abuja. The soldiers were dismissed on accusations of abandoning the Boko Haram insurgency fight and fleeing over alleged inadequate provision of arms and ammunition. They subsequently took the matter before the ECOWAS court to demand the enforcement of their fundamental human rights, including the rights to their salaries and entitlement. In its judgment delivered on May 15, 2019, the court held that the Nigerian Army violated the fundamental human rights of the soldiers by refusing to pay them owed allowances after their dismissal. In a supplementary judgment on Thursday, the court directed the Nigerian government to pay all arrears of monthly allowances and salaries and other entitlement of the affected soldiers up to January 2016. Now, in 2016, some 38 officers of the Nigerian Army were compulsorily retired from service, throwing their families and dependents into unforeseen hardship. In this next report, TV360's Tunji Oye speaks with the wife of one of the affected officers who narrates what the experience has been like in the last 4 years. Take a listen.
Aisha Shehu, not her real name, is the wife of one of the 38 officers of the Nigerian Army whose service was abruptly terminated in June 2016. She will not want her identity to be revealed because of what she termed family safety, but shares a deep pain with TV360. About a year after President Muhammadu Buhari came to power, Army authorities terminated the services of 38 officers without any cogent reason. Although the Army authorities then said the officers were found culpable in the 2015 presidential election mess, while others are said to be involved in the arms deal scandal.
My husband, who has never been lazy, who put in all his efforts to his job, staying at home, being traumatized with the incident of his dismissal. Sincerely, it has been tough on myself and my children. Many a times the children will call me and ask me, Mom, is it true? They say Dad is stole from the army.
Affected by the purge were 9 major generals, 11 brigadier generals, 7 colonels, and 11 lieutenant colonels.
They got information that they had been compulsorily retired as punishment for being involved in procurement and election malpractice and all that. So the letter itself says that they were punished for serious offenses, okay? It purports that the Army Council had a verdict against these individuals and the Army Council had actually now approved the punishment. In fact, factually, that's not true. It turns out for a fact that the court and people that have had to sit on these cases have said, look, this is not true.
Since the compulsory retirement in 2016, more than 4 officers have won a court case against the army, both in Lagos and Abuja. The National Industrial Court has asked the military authorities to reverse the decision and reinstate the officers with all their entitlements paid. Yes, judgment has been pronounced by the court, but justice is yet to be given to the victims because the Nigerian Army have refused to obey court orders.
Several courts have looked into it. Even our own National Assembly say restate this person, restate these persons. And the Nigerian Army appears to be saying, we are not under any law. We are above the law. We are the Nigerian Army. This is not right.
Since 2016 till now, the Army has been completely unable to bring forth any fact of any panel, of any conviction, of any formal charge against any of these individuals.
The president should look into this matter and not just with words or silent, but he should take action.
All hope is definitely not lost. The affected officers believe President Muhammadu Buhari, as a father of the nation, will do justice to the matter anytime he is fully aware of the situation. From Abuja, Tunji, TV360 News.
The Police Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, has tortured and killed people on at least 82 occasions since January 2017. This is according to Amnesty International. In a report released by the International Rights Watchdog on Thursday, the group alleged that SARS officials used torture and ill treatment to execute, punish and extract information from suspects, some of whom end up dead. It also adds that these horrific violations were carried out under the supervision of high-ranking police officers. Over the years, SARS has been notorious for allegedly violating human rights in the course of the operations. On several occasions, the police have taken decisions to reform the unit, but reports of human rights violations by the officials still persist. The federal government have urged all states in Nigeria to domesticate the Child Rights Act in order to address the issue of child abuse in Nigeria, which has since been on the rise. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Paul Ntalin, disclosed this while addressing State House correspondents at the end of the FEC meeting in Abuja. Ntalin also reeled out the successes recorded in the ministry in the last 8 months.
Issues and cultural problems that mitigate women's participation in the society, like harmful traditional practices. We are addressing child mutilation and also encouraging every state to domesticate the Child Rights Act. That is mandatory for every state to adopt it in order to address issues affecting our children and their full participation in nation building. The VAPT Act, too, is another issue which we are battling with to ensure that every state domesticate the VAPT Act to address the issues of rape and gender-based violence. We have one parastatal under the ministry, which is the National Center for Women Development, headed by DG, and the ministry that parastatal does a lot of training, research and documentation on issues that affect women, promoting women and engaging women in all kinds of training, artisanship, up to the graduation. And after graduation, we empower them to settle down and run their own businesses.
Let's take a break here, but still to come. Lagos Health Minister warns that COVID-19 cases will increase in the next months as community transmission nears its peak.
In the last 3 years, we have built a multi-purpose center, which is the envy of all in our constituency. And I can tell you that the people who are living there are already enjoying it.
Guy, do you think what this man just said is true? See, I seriously doubt. I'm sure it's one of those their silly lies.
And wait, do you know there's a way to find out if these things he's saying is true or not? This is the Construct app. It gives people like us a sure way to track implementation of constituency projects. It gives valid and verified information on location of projects, amounts allocated, amount funded, the level of job done, and even the profiles of concerned legislators. You and I can post directly on this app.
Are you serious?
This is the go-to app if you want to know how our Commonwealth is being expanded by the government.
Wow. Let's even see if what this man said is true. Show me.
The Construct app is developed by Other People Nigeria with support from USAID and is available on both Google Play Store and Apple Store.
And it's true.
Of course, I told you.
You're welcome back. Here are the top stories I've been bringing you at this time. APC faction loyal to Adams Oshiomhole threaten legal action over the dissolution of National Working Committee as President Muhammadu Buhari receives members of Reconciliation Committee at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Federal government bans purchase of non-essential official vehicles as it moves to cost of governance by stopping non-critical and administrative capital spending. We also told you that ECOWAS court orders federal governments to pay salary arrears and other entitlements owed to 244 soldiers who were dismissed from the Nigerian army in 2016. The soldiers were dismissed on accusations of abandoning the Boko Haram insurgency and fleeing over alleged inadequate provision of arms and ammunition. Cross River State has recorded its first COVID-19 case. Chief Medical Director, University of Calabar Teaching Hospital, Professor Ikpeme made this known in a memo to staff on Thursday. In the memo, Ikpeme confirmed that a rapid test which was conducted on a patient came out positive. The professor added that the management of UCTH had been in direct contact with the Director General of the NCDC and has approved the hospital as an independent test center. Cross River's index case means that all 36 states in Nigeria and the Federal Capital Territory have now recorded cases of COVID-19 since the country's index case was reported on February 27th. According to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the country now has 22,614 COVID-19 cases, 549 deaths, and 7,822 recoveries. Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa and his entire family have embarked on a 14-day self-isolation. This is coming after one of his daughters tested positive for coronavirus. Okowa's daughter's case was among the 106 positive cases announced in the state by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control on Thursday night. In a tweet on Friday, Okowa said his family will be isolating for the next 14 days in accordance with the stipulated health procedures. As part of efforts to reduce community transmission, Lagos State has announced plans to allow primary healthcare centers to manage asymptomatic cases within communities. The State Health Commissioner Akin Abayomi said this during a media briefing at the state capitol on Friday. The Permanent Secretary, Lagos State Primary Healthcare Board, Aina Olugbemiga, also added that the new initiative will help reduce stigmatization and raise more awareness among members of each community.
We are in the middle of the outbreak. We have not even peaked yet, and therefore we're still on the upstroke. We still expect to see a lot more cases in the next month or two, and so I will use this platform again to remind Lagosians that we have not yet peaked, and Lagos is still going through the active community transmission of COVID-19. Now that we're decentralizing care to community, we are going to be using the much improved, much more empowered primary healthcare platform to manage home-based care. And that's why it's taken us a couple of weeks to organize it, because it requires a significant amount of logistics, planning, and implementation. But in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will be shifting management of COVID, asymptomatic to mild cases, to the community at the grassroots level to be monitored by the primary healthcare platform.
Government cannot handle everything, and that's why you see us changing strategy involving private sector. But of most importance is that the community at this point must take ownership of that care. And if community is able to take ownership of that care, that means the issue of stigmatization will go down. They will also be able to offer psychosocial support to members of their community. And how are we going to do this? In the next few days, you start seeing us, especially a lot of the medical officers of health and their surveillance officers, trying to track some of those that are already under home care by default.
167 Nigerians stranded in South Africa have returned to Nigeria on Thursday. The Nigerian Teen Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, said this via its official Twitter handle on Thursday. The tweet said the evacuees had tested negative to COVID-19, but will be undergoing the mandatory 14-day self-isolation in line with the guidelines from the NCDC. The returnees arrived at Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja from Johannesburg at about 9:10 p.m. local time via an Air Peace flight. The World Health Organization has expressed hope that the world would have an anti-COVID-19 vaccine early next year. WHO Chief Scientist Soumya Swaminathan said this on Friday, adding that it usually takes 8 to 10 years to develop a vaccine, but that the World Health Organization plans to shorten the time it will take to develop a vaccine for COVID-19. Swaminathan also added that the Global Health Body has already begun working with over 200 candidates for human clinical trial to find a cure. The global COVID-19 toll is currently at 9.64 million, with 490,000 deaths.
In general, it takes 8 to 10 years for a vaccine from when the research begins to when it gets into people. We want to shorten that timeline to as short as possible. We're aiming for 12, maximum of 18 months, and that would be unprecedented and can only happen through a global collaboration between scientists, academics, small companies, larger companies, the big pharma industry, as well as member states, philanthropies, private and public sector, civil society, to make sure that we put in place everything that's needed to be able to test as many vaccine candidates as possible. And the good news is we have over 200 candidates at some stage of clinical development. About 15 of them are actually now in human clinical trials. So if we're able to accelerate that, and at the same time set up manufacturing capacities, invest in scaling up manufacturing, because normally it's a step-by-step process. First, you prove that a vaccine works, then you go in and invest in manufacturing, and that usually takes a couple more years to get enough doses. We don't have time to wait. So we have to invest in manufacturing in advance for many different types of vaccine candidates so that we can scale up to millions and billions of doses as soon as possible.
The FIFA Council convened by video conference on Friday and took important decisions for the future of football. One of these decisions was the approval of a $1.5 billion FIFA COVID-19 relief fund, and that's to help football cope with the aftermath of a global pandemic. All member associations will receive a $1 million grant. Women's football will receive a $500,000 grant. Each confederation will receive a $2 million grant, and member associations can apply for interest-free loans up to 35% of their audited annual revenues. To ensure effective implementation of the plan, FIFA has constituted a FIFA COVID-19 Relief Plan Steering Committee. Olli Rehn, the Deputy Chairman of the FIFA Governance Committee and Governor of the Bank of Finland, has been appointed as Chairman of the committee. Let's take a break here to join Fidelia Oguncha, who's standing by for business news. Welcome back. It's over now to Fidelia Aguncha for Business Stories.
Thank you very much, Annetta. No fewer than 400,000 applicants will be absorbed into the third batch of the federal government Empower National Social Investment Scheme. Minister for Humanitarian Affairs Sadiya Omar Farouk, who announced this, said the government today began enrollment of beneficiaries. The minister explained that the enrollment will provide opportunities for more Nigerian youths to access the program in furtherance of President Muhammadu Buhari's vision of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. This follows the federal government's announcement that it plans to create and save about 5 million jobs from post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan. Well, the federal government will announce a new date for the resumption of commercial flights next week. Director General Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority Musa Nuhu said this on Thursday during the Presidential Task Force briefing on COVID-19. Nuhu also revealed that airlines have not been authorized to conduct test run flights yet, adding that simulation flights will be conducted on Saturday. Oil prices rose on Friday, extending gains on optimism about a recovery in fuel demand worldwide, despite a surge in coronavirus infections in some U.S. states and signs of a revival in U.S. crude production. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 25 cents to $38.97 a barrel, but were on track for a slight drop for the week. Brent crude futures rose 32 cents to $41.37 a barrel and were also heading for a small decline for the week. Overall, commodities markets were taking a positive view on the global recovery on Friday, despite worries about coronavirus flare-ups. We will now shift focus to the stock market after this break. Don't go away. Life returned to the NSE today after 1 week of bearish dominance as the market grew by 0.83%, pushed up by renewed interest in ICT and consumer goods stocks. At the close of trading today, investors gained over 107 billion naira as market value moved from 12.845 trillion to this, which is 12.952 trillion. Now, the weight pulled. Okay, let's now look at the market summary. 127 million shares were transacted in 2,844 deals. Dangote Cement leads the pack of losers as some equities still recorded losses despite the market's bullish performance. Dangote Cement leads the pack, falling by 2 naira, while Fitson sits on the second chart. PZ Cussons and Flour Mill also had a bad day. On the flip side, we can see that Airtel Africa pulled the most weight on the market today, appreciating in value by almost 30 naira. It is closely followed by Nestle right here, UACN Nigeria and ETI also posting gains. To the foreign scene now, we can see that the Dow and the FTSE and Nikkei actually also had a good day, but the Dow is still in the negative territory where it closed yesterday. That is from the world of business. It's back to Annetta Felix.
Thank you for the business updates, Fidelia. And moving on now, Malawi opposition leader Lazarus Chakwera has what appears to be an unassailable lead in a presidential election rerun worth about 60% of the vote. Now, this is according to a tally by state broadcaster NBC. The Malawi Broadcasting Corporation said the tally was from all but 3 of 28 districts counted, and it gave President Peter Mutharika only 39% of votes. Meanwhile, the Electoral Commission says it will take up to 2 further days to announce the result of the rerun of the May 2019 election, which Malawi's courts cancelled owing to widespread fraud. A win for Chakwera would be a dramatic reversal of last year's discredited result that handed power back to the incumbent, who's been in power since 2014. The disputed win sparked months of anti-government protests, which is a red site in Malawi. The Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Sunday Dare, has said the ministry is making progress with the adoption of the private-public partnership model to deal with the infrastructural deficit in sports. The minister revealed this while addressing State House correspondents in Abuja. Dare said the PPP model will be used to fund the construction of national stadia across the state.
The infrastructure deficit that we have across the country, we're able to demonstrate that this country really had a clear blueprint for sports development across the country. But we needed to, so we have clear support. We've made some good progress on the PPP model for sports infrastructural development. We're able to showcase how we're bringing private money to help with the National Stadium Abuja, the stadium in Surulere, the Township Stadium across the state. And we hope that eventually this public-private partnership will help to bring about the desired sports development that this country needs.
And that's it on News Now on TV360 Nigeria. Many thanks for watching. Bye for now.